Welcome back to the channel, beautiful people. I owe you a thank you because the support on the channel this week in particular has been absolutely magnificent, not just in terms of views or comments or likes, but also subscriptions. So thank you very much. I hope you have had a wonderful day so far. And today I have engineered the video slightly differently. So each dilemma that's brought up has specificity with regards to your teams because I've used your comments and your comments on Twitter to really base the main subjects in this video. So hopefully you should find it very, very helpful. If you haven't subscribed already, as you can see, great season so far, up to 63k with no chips being used, team in a very healthy position. A lot of people have been enjoying the analysis, so maybe you can be part of that as well. Any questions you guys have, just drop in the comments. More than happy to answer. Like the video if you enjoy, and without anything else needing to be said, let's hop into it. Let's start our discussion with the powerful triple captaincy chip. Obviously, I haven't touched on it this week, thus I thought it is the best place to start. I personally, not a fan, not in the slightest. There are many reasons why, and we're going to go through them. Firstly, I had Ipswich at home higher than this fixture, than I have it right now. Southampton at home. Why? Well, when we had Ipswich at home, we had a lot of knowns, whereas now we have a lot of unknowns. We had Rodri in the side. We had De Bruyne as well. We knew what we were getting in terms of the system. We don't have any of that now. What else do we have? Well, Russell Martin has seen Manchester City and specifically Erling Haaland struggle against Arsenal's 6-3-0. It's seen them struggle and him struggle against Newcastle's man-to-man that transitioned into a 5-4-1. It's seen him struggle against Wolves' wing-back system, okay? 3 games in a row, it's seen him struggle. Oh, and Fulham as well, who went a slightly different approach to usual with the combination of Lukic and Sanderberg. So even they protected the middle. Surely he sees that. Surely he sees his performance at the Emirates and understands that that game model, that system isn't going to work. And he takes a different approach at the Etihad. And you know what? He's more likely to do this now than ever before and ever again, because if he's not going to do it against City, he won't do it against anyone, right? They're the most likely he's willing to compensate and shift for. And I think he will, because he's seen other managers have success. And I think it would be so ignorant for him not to do so. Honestly, I think in a way it's a sackable offence. I know that people are so insistent on playing in their philosophy, but if it's going to get the club relegated from the Premier League, sure, you can go out saying you played your way, but at the end of the day, you lost. And for me, that's why I really don't fit into this philosophy. I bet you any money, Nuno Espirito Santo, this is not his favourite way to play football, but he understands with the profiles he's got in this squad, the budget that he has, the club that he's at, this is fine. And this is not even fine, this is optimal, or at least close to it. And, you know, if you gave him Messi, Ronaldo, Bale, Neymar, he'd probably play in a different way. But he doesn't have those players, and he's adjusted to them magnificently well. And I don't think enough managers in the league are doing this. So that's why I think Russell Martin has to do it. Because if he's not going to do it now, he's not going to do it for the rest of the season. And while Southampton actually do have quite a bit of talent in their ranks, they're not going to do well enough to get out of the bottom 3 when the league is so strong. So that's why I think he changed it. He goes a 5 at the back, and he makes it more difficult. So then maybe you could say, well, shouldn't we captain him at all? I still think, right, there's a huge quality difference. You look at when the block was low against Arsenal, and I know Saka is a magician type, and he is a completely different level to most, but with the likes of Savinho, with the quality that they have in the middle, assuming that Foden plays, and it isn't Gundo or Silva, and that's another thing. If Gundo or Silva play, it'll be slow in the middle again, and there's no Doku on the left to break 1v1, so maybe Haaland's chances are reduced even more so there. So all of those reasons, I just don't think you're triple captain. And then lastly, what about the double game week? Okay, people say, what if we used a mystery trip? What if we used a bench boost and a free hit? Well, you could very easily free hit 20, or free hit in the blank, wildcard just before the big double, then bench boost, and then triple captain in the second double game week. And then, you know, the mystery chip, okay, maybe we do use it in the double game week. 38 is a fine time to use the triple captain. You'll have a lot of information. You'll have at least one trend which has really established itself that has a lot of upside, like Palace last year, and you can go after that. Statistically, the week has more goals than any other week as well. So for me, no way would I be triple captaining. Obviously, there's all the obvious positives, and I expect him to do well. That's why I'm captaining him. But for me, triple captain, especially not in a double game, especially when it's not a double game week, I wouldn't be going. That's the main thing. More so than the analysis of the team, it's the double gaming. I was just trying to present the counter argument. Now, is Foden worth it? I think when Foden's expected minutes are good, he is so good. But when they're bad, as you will see in the Saka section, the opportunity cost of someone at his price point, albeit he is quite a bit lower than the rest of the premium, half premium, very bad because of the opportunity cost. So, you're really going to have to assess your own risk appetite. Now, I would say I think he's going to start against Southampton just because it is Southampton. The Pep doesn't have to shore up that midfield. Why isn't he a nailed starter? Well, I think Pep's going for more control with Gundo. He's going for more offensive now. So he's going for a bit more physicality. I think Bernardo is the most preferred 8 at the moment, as he was at the start of the season with De Bruyne. So for me, I think it's close, but I think Foden starts this week. I think if he plays well enough, he'll start Bournemouth away, which is a good matchup for him. If he plays well enough again, he'll start Brighton, which is again a good matchup for him. So it's either going to go really well, I think, or it's going to go really bad. You'll either get him starting here and then he'll do really well in the next 3. That's what I think will happen because he'll get starts if he performs here and then he performs again, or it's going to go really bad. And it's purely dependent on your risk appetite. I think in a lot of spots, I would probably just bite the bullet and go Palmer. You're saving yourself a transfer down the line, and you're getting guaranteed expected minutes penalties. But if the appetite is there for that type of risk, because there is upside and he has a lot of upside as a player, given his style of game and given his quality of ball striking and the positions he occupies, but then you've obviously got the reward for taking that risk. But for me, marginally, I would go Palmer, but I wouldn't mind it compared to someone like Son, because I think you can just captain Haaland in 11, which significantly increases Son's appeal as an asset. Right, let's move on to Bukayo Saka now, and should you be selling him and Havertz? Because I saw a lot of shouts for should I sell Havertz, should I sell Havertz? All right, let's talk about Saka first, and then we can move on to the German forward. The opportunity cost attached to Saka failing is huge, and you getting this decision wrong, the opportunity cost is huge. Why? Number one, he's a premium. All of the alternatives that you're foregoing are very good as football players. They have okay fixtures, all of them. Like Foden's fixtures are good, but Son, Palmer, and if you can get to Salah, then Salah as well. They have okay fixtures, getting better in the near term. And therefore, because they're premiums, they all have big ceilings. So if you get it wrong, you could get it very, very wrong. It's not like losing, I don't know, like a Pinnock to a Nathan Collins as an example, right? They're both very similar in terms of their ceilings, their prospects. Obviously, you know my point. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, even if you keep him, the fixtures after this are still pretty poor. Newcastle away, Chelsea away, Forest at home after the IB as well, which is another factor considering. Just I think in general games are a little bit slower after the IB. And I think I might be wrong. That's the 12:30 fixture. So you're not exactly exposing yourself to mass upside afterwards. And thirdly, will he be at his best this fixture? Probably not, because he's probably not going to be 100% here. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be having a conversation. He could aggravate his injury, and he could become injured again, and therefore miss the next 2 games. So you would have missed out on value, which is a big deal. You'll be a transfer behind, essentially, because you're probably going to use it somewhere else, and you won't have got the points from this week that others would have from their premium. So for me, in all cases, he's a sell. Even if you get told that he starts, and which I don't think you will, I think with the uncertainty attached, and for the reasons I presented you, mainly the risk profile of this is so large, where the reward isn't really that big, I would sell. Now, people are asking, should I sell Havertz? Now, this I see very differently, because you have value accumulated in him, and I really like the fixtures from 13. You'll say the same about Saki as the same fixtures, yes, but there's also a lot of other risk attached, as I've shown. With Havertz, I think he could do well in this particular fixture. One thing I expect Arne Slot to do, which is actually bad for Havertz, I think he'll go to a slightly slower pace, or at least the distances between all the players will be fairly small. I don't think Arsenal will have too many opportunities to transition, because Liverpool are so clean at keeping the ball like that. And I think he'll actually reduce his risk profile by playing a little bit slower within those small space combinations, which is something he's done this season and done very effectively, and in general is aligned with his philosophy, hence backs too wide. So I don't think Arsenal get too many opportunities to transition, which is one place where Havertz thrives. But overall, it's still at home. He'll get some opportunities because Liverpool still give you some space in behind. Arsenal is still a decent side. And I mean decent and not better than decent, because without Saka and without Odegaard, on that assumption, creatively, they're really going to struggle. If he has Saka, that's a massive plus for him, because the guy is, or has been, the best chance creation machine in the league. And therefore, he definitely will supply Havertz with a lot compared to pretty much the entire team combined. The other thing is, in the big games, Havertz is a bit of a magnet for the ball, and certain instances where you want the ball to end up, because the type of patterns of plays are very different in general. So I think this could be quite a difficult fixture, but I wouldn't be selling Havertz because the prospects down the line are still pretty good. Sure, Newcastle away, Chelsea away is not great, but at this price, it's definitely more justifiable than Saka, especially when there's no uncertainty match and this fixture itself is still a bit there. But if you are to sell, it's not the worst sell in the world. I just personally don't love it. I think next week maybe it's a better sell. But this week, if you do it, okay, not the end of the world. But I don't love it. Saka, I'm all on board with it in pretty much every case. Should you be selling Raya and Gabriel? So the only reason you'd really be selling Raya, because these are the type of fixtures he's going to haul in, even though I think Liverpool can score. I think Newcastle especially may be the one that he gets a clean sheet in. If he's going to get one in the next three, which is where I'd cap him at, is to get cash out, because you don't really want to be making too many goalkeeper transfers. However, if you do have an opportunity to take cash out of Raya and put it elsewhere, and the opportunity is enough where you can justify that double transfer switch, and you maybe want to reduce your risk exposure in the form of double Arsenal defense and only have one, and maybe allow yourself a different structure so that you can have double Arsenal attack down the line, then I think it's fine. And I'm a lot more on board with it than I am with Gabriel. So similar to the Saka Havertz situation. So one thing with Gabriel is we pride ourselves on the fact that we can have the attacking upside from him. But is it significantly diminished when Saka's not there? Because after all, both his goals have come from Saka's brilliant set piece taking delivery. And if he's not there, well, whoever takes it, it's not going to be of the same quality. And potentially even a right footer, which means it's a winger, I think will be even harder for him to score from. So for those reasons, I think Gabriel's value definitely goes down without Saka. But he's still the biggest box threat in the league, right? So at the same time, is it worth the loss in value and the fact that you are going to have to bring him back in? There is no two ways about it. When Saka gets fit and the fixture run gets good, you are going to very much want Gabriel. So for those reasons, I think I'm leaning towards keeping. Again, I don't think it's the worst sell in the world. And I'm more leaning towards leaning with Gabriel than I am with Havertz. But I understand the window of opportunity that some may look to take. For me, personally, is a keep. And it's not the best transfer by any means. It's not the worst, but I still think it could potentially be pretty bad, dependent on your team. Now, let's move on to another dilemma, which is close to home for a lot of you. And that's Trent Alexander-Arnold. And I'm going to go and start with a bit of psychology, and then some of my own thoughts within the psychological sphere. And we're going to talk about the endowment effect first. Now, for those of you who don't know what it is essentially you place more value, you attribute more value to things that you own in comparison to things that you don't. And at a level which is illogical and doesn't satisfy certain levels of rationality. Okay, I will give you an example. I have a biscuit and you have a cookie. I give this cookie a rating of 70 out of 100 and the cookie 30. However, if I was in some parallel universe and I had a cookie and you had the biscuit, I would also give this cookie a 70 out of 100. Now that is, from a rational standpoint, completely irrational. So why do we do that? And it's just a psychological bias for a number of reasons, which we could go into, don't really need to. That what you have, you give more value because you're less willing basically to give things up. And psychology behind that runs pretty deep. And we don't need to go into that because it's not super important. It's just more important that you understand the bias is present. It's present in pretty much everyone. So you may think you don't have it, but you certainly do to an extent. Especially if this is the first time you've heard about it, you definitely would have been unconscious about it, and therefore it would have been acting and operating within your life without you even knowing it. You do place more value on things you own. And one of the reasons for that, which isn't discussed so much with the theory, but I'm going to hypothesize about it, is the fear of the unknown. Because now, if you were to accept the trade, essentially, you're going to bring yourself in a new position. And any form of change in life, anyone who experiences any form of change, and it does not matter who you are, in the brain, it brings up some level of anxiety. Okay, why do I bring this up? I think a lot of people are attached to Trent and the idea of Trent. The idea of Trent now is he plays for a top 3 defense in the league, and it's a much improved defense. Some weird noise going outside. And he himself is the greatest creative fullback to ever grace the planet. And that's what you're selling. And I think people are really attached to the idea of that. However, by giving that up, you relinquish so much cash and you get to use it in other areas to maximize upsides. And we've already talked about the theory so many times about how cheap defenders with attacking upsides, they can cover from a structural standpoint the more expensive defenders like Trent. And Trent is playing a completely different role this year. It is a lot more defensive. If he was under Klopp, he never would have had the performance he did against Chelsea. He would have accumulated far more many chances. Okay, now I understand that you would want him for 10 to 12. I get it. Brighton, they have firepower. So the second that clean sheet goes, on the assumption that it goes, the potential for a haul massively down with the changes to the bonus structure. Villa have got serious talent. They definitely have a goal in them. Okay, fine. Southampton, you'll be like, I would like him for Southampton. And you'd probably like him for Brighton as well in 10. And I understand that. But look at the opportunity cost. It is immense with Trent. Yes, he has a lot of points. He might even have more points than any other defender, if I'm not mistaken. But at 7 million, whereas Gabriel and Guardiola and Pinnock, for example, they're only a little bit behind, okay, for a lot less in terms of value. And I think moving money out of Trent and going for like a Nori, even though he's not as good of an asset in isolation, is going to help your team overall. And I can understand why you are maybe unconsciously unwilling to do it, because he, as a concept, is so brilliant. But you have to look at things as they are. And as they are, he's not the same asset he was in the past. And yes, he probably is going to get a haul here and there and hurt you in some weeks. But you can't play the game in fear. And I think, honestly, Trent is becoming now a pick which is people are letting themselves off with, but is predominantly fear-based, I would say. I understand why they're doing it from a logical standpoint, but I don't actually think there's too much evidence to support the argument that he's anywhere close to an optimal team. So if you aren't going to go there, who are the replacements? Well, one thing people are speaking about is bringing in Guardiola, so I thought I would just touch on him. It's really, really complicated, this, and he probably deserves his own section by himself. Now, the thing with him is Ake's back. So if you ever were to encounter a game where you would just like a left back to absolutely clamp the right winger again and again and again, he's not a bad option, especially if Guardiola needs a rest. If Guardiola ever does need a rest, you've got Ake there now. So that's the expected minutes things. Then in terms of clean sheets, well, we've spoken about how they're going to be down this year. Are the fixtures even that good from a defensive standpoint? No. Okay, fine. There's Southampton this week, but you wouldn't really be bringing him for 1 week. Bournemouth away, tough. Brighton away, and when I'm talking about from a clean sheet standpoint, tough. Spurs at home, tough. Liverpool away, I'm going to say. I think it's away. Tough. Yeah, no, it is away. Tough. Like, that's 4. The only thing is he can get goals in all 4 of those. And I think in the tougher fixtures, that almost suits his attacking threat more. But again, my argument comes to, okay, fine, but you can get attacking returns from cheap defenders who are also not going to keep. Of course, their likelihood of hauls is going to be significantly decreased because their likelihood of clean sheets is so low. But if you time the right players in the right windows, for example, Pinnock and XY, for example, Raya and Nori, I think it's fine. If you're going to be selling Trent, you really need to get a decent amount of money out. With Guardiola, you'll be getting about $1 million. And if that satisfies everything in your team, by all means, do it. But just don't be afraid to go all the way down to a 4.5 like Raya, Nori, or Pinnock. One thing I'd say, and it's just a very random thought that popped into my head, don't be afraid to keep Konsa. I know he hasn't really been returning, but he's still got that box threat. He's got a bit of open play threat when he plays at right back, and the fixtures from 12 are pretty good. So I'm thinking about keeping him, so something I thought I'd pass on. And another Liverpool player that people are really, really looking at is Salah. And I've seen so many aggressive routes to him. Hits, -8, selling Saka and Havertz. And I would just say, calm. This week, I think he could do really well. But it's Arsenal away. It's not the best fixture to bring him in. And you don't need to break your team for him. You're not going to captain him. So he's probably not going to hurt you too much. Although I think he could do really well. But in theory, at least from a model theory, it shouldn't be too bad. Just wait until next week. And the reason I have that last line in capitals is because so many of the things I've seen, oh, should I sell this guy and this guy for Salah? And remember, when you're selling 2 players, it's 2 players. It's whenever you're bringing in Salah, or any asset, it's combinations of assets. You are blocking yourself from doing things, even if it's hidden down the line. So try and look at the whole picture in terms of who you're bringing in, because you're never just bringing in Salah. You're also blocking yourself from bringing in Mbeumo, and instead you have to bring in to myself there in a way. So just assess the overall picture. And I think Salah is pretty easy. Just wait a week and see what happens. If you have Saka and you're like, okay, but I can get to Salah in 2 moves, and therefore why would I go to Son or Foden now for just 1 week? I would say that is a pretty awkward spot, and you have a decision to make. Maybe you just do go to Son or Foden for 1 week, or maybe you go with them with the idea in mind that, okay, you know what? If I have to keep him next week, no problem, because maybe they do really well and I want to keep him. Maybe I'm not so keen on captaining Salah. I would ask yourself all of these questions and just see what strategies are open to you. But you don't need to have Salah this week. Yes, it's preferable in my opinion. You don't need to. Right, to conclude solving your problems, I thought I would rank the cheap forwards and then also give a bit of a discussion to Watkins and Jackson, two of the three forwards that are a bit more expensive. I've obviously spoken about Havertz, who haven't really been shown any love in terms of the conversation. I've gone for Cunha for all of the reasons I spoke about. Fundamentally, he's so sound, right? And I'm not going to go through this in too much detail because I did speak about it in the Everything You Need to Know video. Cunha is a player that I've rated for so long, so highly, has all the fundamentals, he has penalties, he has set pieces, got the fixture run, and he's super reliable with that level of quality. So for me, for that level of quality and reliability, I've gone for number one. Wood and Vissa, I've put a second for different reasons. I think Vissa's next five from an attacking standpoint is magnificent. I do think, however, he's coming back from injuries and maybe expecting it slightly down. However, I don't think he'll be eaten into too much when he's fit because Sharda hasn't looked great just generally, right? So I think maybe after 2 or 3, he'll be back to 90s. Woods, to be fair, it's not really. I'm not sure. I don't think he's someone who played 90s super often, but something to keep an eye out on. I do think his expected minutes overall will be good. Woods, for slightly different reasons, I think his expected minutes probably anywhere between 75 to 85. They'll loiter around there, but in such good form, playing in a Forest side who are in such good form, in a system which is designed very well for him. He's not channel running and trying to create space for others. He's very much stationary in a relative sense, right? In a relative sense, because think about an older striker, like an older version of Watkins. That was not a stationary striker. That was a channel runner. Where Wood isn't that? Even though he works very hard for his team off the ball, and it's a 4-2-3-1 where the wings aren't too wide, which means and too high, most importantly, so they're not going to get into and beyond the last line too often. So realistically, the guy who's going to be at the end of them with the volume of crosses as well is Chris Wood. Larson is the cheap version of Cunha. He's worse in pretty much every aspect, apart from the fact that he doesn't have to do as much he doesn't have as much progressive responsibility nor carrying responsibility. Same thing, passer. He's not very pass heavy, the position he plays anyway. So I have him there. The reason I have Raul there is I think Anderson, he's very useful on the ball, so maybe Fulham's progression halts and maybe their chance creation halts as a result to an extent. And the other thing is I can potentially see them going on a bit of a decline, although he himself has been magnificent and he could very well prove me wrong. It's all pretty close because all of these guys are good options, and I'll say that again, Jimenez is a good option, but there's just something about Fulham where I haven't got that feeling at the moment. DCL could either be first or last, and he won't be in between because that fixture run is stellar, and he has a lot of quality. He's just not showcasing the finishing quality at the moment. And you can argue that he just doesn't have that at all, but in terms of the rest of the game, there's a lot to like there. If you have him for the reason I spoke about with McNeil in terms of the specific analysis for Fulham and then having Southampton after, I keep. And then the good thing is that after that, in 11, that's when Wolves Southampton. So if you would like to offload for that, you can do so. But this is what I'm thinking for DCL. And then Watkins and Jackson. I think Watkins is great. He's been so gone for anyone who's owned him and so useful considering the rest of pretty much everyone in that time span. Not many who've been able to keep up with Watkins, if any, in the forward category. He's just so expensive, and I think with the structure that is optimal, especially because in the next few the fixtures aren't great because they include Liverpool. Spurs away is fine, but I think Mickey van der Ven could actually give him a bit of a hard game. Personally, from a structural standpoint, if you have other opportunities, not this week, but maybe in a week or two, I wouldn't mind selling. However, he is a very secure source of points. So if you're very adamant that this particular budget option or these many budget options can do the business, then I would keep. And you know what? Maybe that's the best way to go, actually. Jackson, I think, is an easy hold. I like him from game week 12. I even don't mind him now. I only have good things. I really don't think his minutes will be too affected by Nkunku, even though he's a top player, just because he seems very much in favour with Maresca and he's playing so well. How can you drop him? Finally, the cheap mids. I've called on ESR a little bit. A lot of people have spoken about because a lot of people have him. The positioning's still there, but I think in terms of the physicality, maybe as everyone else is kicking on a little bit more, is catching up to him, given he hasn't played football at this level for a long, long time, given his injury. And whilst the positioning is still decent, I do worry about the ceiling as well to an extent, whereas I don't do so with the like Garnacho because I've seen his goal scoring ability. I don't with McNeil because look at what we've seen this season, look at the technical quality, look at the avenues to points and the many avenues to points, and Johnson's in such red hot form, right? I've got a question mark there because he seems to be more of a consistent scorer as opposed to someone who's going to explode in a game and score like a hat trick. For me, I like Garnacho and McNeil in particular, and I would slightly call on ESR. Johnson, I think I'd have in the middle, but for me, Garnacho and McNeil are a tier above pretty much everybody else at the moment, especially McNeil, given he comes in cheaper. And whilst United's fixtures are great, they are in worse form. You never really know what you're going to get with them. That is about... Oh, Semenyo. And Semenyo... Remember what I said about Semenyo? Yes, remember that I explained in quite some depth why I thought he was a high floor, low ceiling asset. And another thing is his finishing wasn't great against Arsenal. And maybe that's something to note just in the future because it shouldn't have been at the level it was. I know other players miss chances, but it's not like he's been someone who's historically the best finisher in the world or anything. So that is another thing to consider if you are looking to move on, especially with his fixture on. And that's about it. And that is all she wrote for Game Week 9's content. Thank you very much. If you enjoyed the video, please like it. It would be very much appreciated. If you have enjoyed the video, if you have been enjoying the content this week, which I guess so many of you have done because you're watching but not subscribed, please do consider clicking the button. Hopefully we can get to 4,000 subscribers before the deadline. Very excited with my own team this week. A lot of double ups and triple ups within the team. A lot of people playing in the same game, and who knows if it's high scoring, that could be very advantageous. The rank's in a really good place, and who knows where it could be at the end of the week. I am very much looking forward to it. Have a wonderful weekend. Make sure to prioritize yourself and your life as opposed to FPL. When it's done, stop stressing about it, regardless of the outcomes. On the assumption you made the best decision and put the relevant time and effort into it, that's as much as you can do. So all good from there. Have a wonderful weekend, like I said, and I shall see you on Sunday for transfer plans, which I very much look forward to.